All right, so yesterday we learned how to solve for y and then graph the inequality. When we solve for y, we could look at the direction of the inequality to help us graph, right? Okay, so today we're going to be doing something a little bit different where we're going to leave the inequality in standard form and we're going to graph it from standard form, okay? And then we're going to use something called a test point to help us determine where to shade our graph, okay? So in this method, I'm going to use what I know about graphing lines in standard form. When we graph lines in standard form, don't we usually cover and solve and then cover and solve, okay, to find our intercepts? So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to cover and solve to help us find our intercepts to graph the line, okay? And then we're going to use a test point to determine where we shade, okay? So if I cover and solve for this one, I get 2x, and then on the other side I get 20. So what is my x-intercept? Okay, it's 10. All right, now when I cover and solve for the y-intercept, okay, it's not 6. Okay, Victor, think before you speak. All right. Okay. All right. Now, here's what you're going to do next. You're going to graph each of these on their correct axes. So, x-intercept goes on the x-axis, which is right here. Okay, everyone put it right there. Okay, y-intercept goes on the y-axis, which is up here at positive 5. Now, I can still look at this inequality symbol as to whether or not it should be a solid or, I don't know why this says dotted. This should say dashed. Shouldn't say dotted because we're not making dotted lines. Okay, but whether or not I want a solid or a dashed line. Now, I know this one came out kind of light, but it should have had a line underneath. Does yours look like it has a line underneath? Yep. Okay. So what does it mean if it has a line underneath? Is that solid or dashed? Solid. Solid, okay? So everyone take your ruler and connect. With a solid line. All right. Now, before we do our shading, because it's in standard form and it's not solved for y, I can't just look at the direction this points to determine which way to shade, because sometimes it's right and sometimes it's not, okay? So what I have to do is I have to actually use a test point. The point I like to use for my test point is the easiest number to work with for both the x value and the y value. I think that the easiest number to work with is 0, 0. 0 is easy to add with things. It's easy to subtract with things. It's easy to multiply with things, right? So I like to use 0, 0. Now, 0, 0 is this point, the origin, right? Okay. So I'm using this point for my x and my y value. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these x and y values and plug them in to the original inequality. So I'm going to check and see if when I plug them in, it makes the inequality true or false. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm checking, is this a true statement? Is all this stuff less than or equal to 20? Yes. Okay, so what's 2 times 0? 0. What's 4 times 0? 0. Okay. What's 0 plus 0? 0. Is 0 less than or equal to 20? Yes. Yeah, that's true, right? Okay, so this checks out. This is a true statement. So if it's true, is it a solution? Yes. 0, 0 is a solution. Okay? Now, if 0, 0 is a solution, that means that, remember, solutions are in the shaded area. So, here's 0, 0. That means I need to shade this area where 0, 0 is because 0, 0 is a solution. So, everyone shade over 0, 0. It's right there. And shade all the other area there. Does that make sense? Now, which part of the graph did we end up shading? Did we shade above or did we shade below? We shaded below. Okay? And that is because relative to this line, 0, 0 is a solution and it is below the line. Okay? So that's where all your shading goes. Okay, so let's take a look at our next example. We want to, again, cover and solve. So I'm going to cover up the y values to find the x-intercept. Let's think before we say the answer. What is the answer for the x-intercept? No one wants to say it? 4. It's 4. Okay? All right. Let's cover. Okay, so this one, -6. All right, let's go ahead and graph each of these intercepts. So remember, the x-intercept goes on the x-axis, so that's going here. The y-intercept goes on the y-axis. It is at -6, so it's going here. Okay, now look at your symbol. Solid or dashed? Dashed, okay? So this is going to be a dashed line. Okay? Remember, it is dashed because there's no equal to line underneath the inequality. Okay, now before I do my shading, I can't just look at this to tell which way I shade. I have to do a test point if it's not solved for y. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pick the easiest test point, 0, 0, and plug it in here. So I get 3 times 0 minus 2 times 0 is less than 12. Now, I'm not sure if that's less than 12. I'm checking to see if this is true. So, this is 0, this is 0. 0 minus 0, 0. So, is 0 less than 12? Yes, that is true, right? This checks out. That's true. So, in this case, is 0, 0 a solution? Yes. Okay, now, you need to look where 0, 0 is in this, on the graph. Where is 0, 0? It's right here, right? So that part needs to get shaded if it's a solution. So in this graph, because 0, 0 is up here, am I shading above or below? Above, right? So all this gets shaded. Okay? And this one, the shading was above because 0, 0 was above the line. Okay? So you're looking at the position of where 0, 0 is to determine whether your shading is above or below. Okay? Okay, so next one. Let's go ahead and cover and solve. So your x-intercept is 2. Cover and solve over here. What's your y-intercept? -4. Okay, let's graph those. X is 2. Y is -4. Okay, solid or dashed line? Dashed, right? Okay, so let's connect that with a dashed line. Okay, now we're going to pick our test point. Our test point is 0, 0 for our test point, right? So we're going to plug that in. 6 times 0 minus 3 times 0 is greater than 12. We're checking if that's true. Okay, is it true? Is 0 greater than 12? No. So this is not true. This is false, right? So if it's false, this is not a solution. Okay? So if 0, 0 is not a solution, that means I'm not allowed to shade up here. I'm not allowed to shade where 0, 0 is. So where does the shading then have to go? Below on the other side, right? So 0, 0 does not get shaded because it's not a solution. And there's your shading. So the shading in this case is below because I was not allowed to cover up 0, 0 with my shading. Okay? All right. What I'd like you guys to do next is I would like you guys to try the next problem. Okay? Okay, so go ahead and check your solutions. Okay, this one should have been x-intercept 2, y-intercept -5. The test point was false. So there was no shading on 0, 0. The shading was below the line. Because 0, 0 is not a solution. Okay, here are the homework problems that you guys need to do tonight. So please copy those down onto your page.